President Trump expected to declassify documents related to Carter Page and Bruce Ohr, according to a new report by Axios. The documents relate to surveillance of the former campaign advisor and to Justice Department official Bruce Ohr's contacts with Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence agent who put together a dossier on then-candidate Trump. House Republicans have been arguing for months that the documents prove anti-Trump bias within the DOJ. Here is House Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte.
Well, we're digging them out one at a time, and we're making a lot of progress. We did not waste the August recess. We interviewed a number of key witnesses, including Bruce Ohr, and now we are proceeding to get additional documents from the FBI and line up additional witnesses.
Chairman Goodlatte also renewing calls for a second special counsel to investigate the FBI's handling of Hillary Clinton's emails and the investigation into the Trump campaign. Chris, I would say in this case, it all comes down to follow the money. You know, the money comes from the DNC or the Clinton campaign. It goes to Fusion GPS and then into the bank account of Bruce and Nellie Ohr in order to create a document which then Bruce Ohr carries back to the FBI. No matter what happens to it from there, all of that is not good.
No, it's not. It's paid for opposition research on a sitting U.S. president being taken seriously as a reason to surveil Americans.
He wasn't a sitting U.S. president. He was a candidate.
You're right.
Yeah.
To surveil Americans.
It doesn't
and then
make it any better, I don't think.
Oh,
it certainly causes them a lot of trouble.
It's incredibly different when you talk about opposition research that happens during campaigns. I think that
when you're
distinction does matter.
In DOJ investigation.
I think when you're talking about an FBI official getting paid through the bank account of his wife by the Democrats in order to create this fake dossier and then him taking it back inside the FBI. I mean, Kennedy, if that was then used to surveil anyone, I mean, it doesn't even matter who we're talking about here. That's really egregious.
Yeah, and this cannot be how these systems operate. You know, and I understand there are marriages in D.C. where, you know, you have one person who works for a civilian organization, the other who works for the government. But the point is, when it can affect the outcome of a presidential campaign, or if it can create a constitutional crisis, as this certainly still has the ability to, then you absolutely need to disclose in formal documentation who you've interviewed, who you're married to, what you've talked about, and, you know, what is the connection between Christopher Steele. There may be something in this dossier that's legitimate. There's a lot that is illegitimate. But this is a person who had so much anti-Trump passion. He hated the president so much.
But you can't just say it's about marriages, because we know
I'm not saying it's about marriages. I'm saying there are marriages, that's a given, but there has to be disclosure. And that's one of the problems here, is Bruce Ohr did not disclose.
It's more than disclosure, though, because it's like my husband's in finance. If I go on the Business Channel and I talk about and pump up some stock or something that's going to benefit him, that's benefiting me because we're married and we have joint assets.
Which is why you have to
it's more serious than just sharing
like
information when you profit as a result.
It's corruption.
That's a bigger
But the system was
totally
set
corruption.
up to bolster that sort of information sharing, to make people's lives difficult, so they have almost no recourse. And that's what we're seeing here. And I'm still surprised that Bruce Ohr has a job.
So a lot of questions kind of bubble up. One would be, doesn't that already exist? And did Bruce Ohr, break the rules by not disclosing? I mean, I can't believe, I mean, you have to do that at a corporation.
Yep.
As Melissa just said, you've got to put all your cards on the table at a corporation. You don't have to do that at the FBI. The other thing that sort of, like, just makes my brain itch is the fact that if this is what they do to somebody with some power, someone wanting to be the president of the United States, and with some finances, how is the FBI as a whole then treating others around these issues of conflicts of interest and so on and so forth? It just makes me ask the question of, if there is no rule in place and he didn't break it, we got a bigger problem.
Here's the cool thing we're about to get right here is actually primary documents. So much of what's been given out so far to the public has been what the Republicans think this says, or what the Democrats think this says. We've had to draw our own conclusions and play detective. Now we're going to get some primary documents here if these are declassified, and that'll be a goldmine for reporters.
But we've been saying that for months, and I think that's an important point. And people have been saying just put it out there, even on both sides of the aisle. The risk now is if classified information is going to be released, because of this, and we do need to protect national security first and
You
foremost.
know, that
Trust the president
dog
and
and
his
pony show, that
team.
song and dance, that we have to protect sources and methods, has become a shield of opacity that all of these institutions
Kennedy is right.
conveniently use. We need transparency. We need to
And
know.
if the president is
we
moving
need
to
stop
declassify, can't we trust him and his team to know what they're doing? I mean,
the
come
law.
on.
Yes, I mean, I would hope so. We
Yes,
have also,
the answer is yes.
Okay, then yes, I agree, and I am totally with you on the disclosure front here. I don't think that we can move to a world in which people are penalized professionally because of who they're married to, right?
Unless they're lying.
unless there's
money
confused
from the
about
Democrats
classification.
for
First, you want the
documents that
president
you're
to
gonna
release,
funnel
then
back
you
to
don't.
the FBI.
You got to. Wow.
But if you're profiting off that marriage in order
I don't
to
think-
bring someone down who would be an impediment to your agenda, yes, that's problematic. That has nothing to do with the marriage. That has everything to do with
But we don't have evidence
corruption and compromise.
that is what has happened.
Which is why
here.
we have to release the evidence.
I'm not fighting with you
That's
about
why
that.
we have to
I'm
release
saying
the
that we
evidence.
should release it. I'm saying it is normal for us to be concerned about the release of classified information.
With
I have
anything,
been
but not
supportive of it
particularly-
being released for months now.
go.
The president is only doing it today when he's had this option forever.
The Fox News alert, President Trump reportedly gearing up to declassify documents linked to both former campaign advisor Carter Page and DOJ official Bruce Orr. It could happen as early as this week. Congressional Republicans have argued those documents reveal alleged anti-Trump bias within the Justice Department and therefore discredit the Russia investigation. Here's Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
If I were the president, for transparency's sake, for oversight's sake, for reforming the Department of Justice and FBI to get a better product in the future, I would release this just to show what President Obama said about how good his FBI and Department of Justice actually were is a complete falsehood.
Well, let's bring in Republican Congressman Chris Stewart, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee, to catch us up with what we can expect to happen next. Congressman?
Well, I hope the president does. We expect that he will, and he should, as I've been saying for months. And let's go back to what this really is about. This is what this information will reveal. The Department of Justice and FBI senior officials essentially said, well, we've got all this information from Hillary Clinton and the Democratic campaign. Let's take it to the FISA court, but not tell them where we got it. And at the same time, here's some information that indicates these accusations are not true. Let's not tell them about that either. This isn't anything to do with national security. There's nothing in this information that would in any way endanger our national security. All it does is embarrass these officials, and I think, frankly, cast some real legal questions that they're going to have to answer.
All right, we're over time now. In the last hour of Outnumbered, we had a Democrat on the couch, Jessica Tarlov, who suggested that, these documents cannot be trusted. They need to be heavily redacted. And I pressed in, well, wouldn't you think that the president and his team would already know that and do that? We've seen things released, like the memo, the House Intel memo.
Yeah, oh, for heaven's sakes, how many times were we told that House Intel memo was going to deeply endanger national security? They were going to reveal sources and methods. This from people who at the time had not seen the memo. They were making these claims without having seen the memo. And then, of course, we reveal it, and there's nothing like that in it at all.
Are you confident this time with these documents that the same thing would happen, that there wouldn't be anything to worry about?
Absolutely. Unquestionably, I've seen every word of these documents. There's nothing in them that would endanger national security. Look, Harris, you know me. Look at my Air Force wings, my father's Air Force wings. I would never endanger our national security, especially for something political. But this isn't about national security. This is about abuse in the Department of Justice and the FBI that they are embarrassed about, that they know that they have to answer questions if information is revealed. And the American people deserve to see this.
Are there any Democrats in the House Intelligence Committee that you sit on that agree with the point that, yes, this needs to get out here because it's just information?
No, not that I'm aware of. And in the votes we've taken in releasing this information, I don't believe a single Democrat has voted to release it. And once again, you have to wonder why. And it's evident on its face, once this information comes forward, that there's nothing in it that is classified. There's nothing in it that does reveal national security. And so ask you, why are they so resistant to doing that? And what are they trying to protect? And it's very obvious what they're trying to protect.
So what is in it that will help us to understand why Bruce Orr, full well knowing that he was married to someone who didn't just work for the GPS Fusion anti-Trump dossier gatherer, I kind of throw it all into one thing, that company that did this, but gained information that might have been helpful and then somehow got into the bloodstream of things at the DOJ? What's in the documents that will help us understand why that happened?
There's 3 buckets that we've requested to be declassified, and this is what we expect will be. The first is with the Rosenstein-FISA application. And what we'll be able to know then is what did he know and what did he conceal from the FISA courts. The second is, as you've talked about, the Bruce Orr, what they call 302s, notes on his interviews, primarily with Mr. Steele after he had been fired by the FBI because he lied to the FBI and they knew they couldn't trust him. And the third thing is regarding Carter Page and exculpatory information that the FBI had that indicated all of these accusations they'd made against him were not true, and they didn't include that in the FISA application.
Out of all of it,
they had a legal obligation to do that, by the way. This isn't where they get to cherry pick. They can't say, well, we'll show the FISA courts this, but we won't show them that. They can't do that.
Out of all this, Congressman, are we going to get to see kind of how this secret court operates more? I mean, are we going to get some revelations about that, not just in these 3 buckets of documents, but overall? And the reason I ask is, they seem to have a lot of power. And if they could watch somebody with the Trump campaign, and Republicans were part of the process that got renewals for that watching. So this isn't even like it's a bipartisan fight anymore. This is the same party, but it's against the American people's best interest, I would think, not to know how the court operates.
Exactly, and that brings to a really important point, Harris, and that is, to answer your question, it doesn't cast much light directly on how they operate, but it does make you wonder, why didn't they ask some of these questions that seem so obvious? Were the judges diligent in their responsibility to protect a U.S. citizen? Which is why I actually have legislation, and this is something we've been working on from the very beginning of this, that would require, for example, the FISA court to have a transcript. They don't even make a transcript of these proceedings. So we would know what questions were asked, what information was asked of the FBI, Department of Justice, and the exchange between them. And the second thing, this is most important, if it's a U.S. citizen, and only a small portion of these FISA applications apply to U.S. citizens, but if it is a U.S. citizen, the court would be required to have an advocate there, someone who was there to protect the interest and the privacy of that U.S. citizen so they couldn't be abused like it so clearly was done in this case in a very political, a highly charged environment that I think had, political ramifications that here we are 2 years later and we're still dealing with it.
I'll bring you back so we can learn more about that situation. Congressman, great to have you on the program today. Thank you from the great state of Utah, Congressman Stewart.
Thank you, Harris. Good to be with you.